let us focus on evaluating the strength of an inductive argument. So to evaluate the strength, you assume the premises are true and you determine validity. If the argument is invalid, strength is automatically 0, no strength, absolutely weak. If the argument is valid, then you need to find out if it's weak or strong. Strong means a good conclusion, you should believe it. Weak means a bad conclusion, you don't believe it. So consider this argument. Again, I'm allowing you to read it. So Kelly failed calculus. Well, I don't want to read out loud, but from the 2 preceding years of failing calculus, you conclude that Kelly will fail calculus. When you notice that she will, you go to failing, in the third, and the conclusion, you got failing calculus, the argument is valid. The word will, however, is definite, is certain. This makes the argument valid but weak. Okay, because you're being too certain, you're being so specific. It's how do you know that? How do you know that? There's no evidence for that. Just because the person failed a couple of times doesn't mean they're gonna always fail. And that's what will mean. You're always, well, you're definitely gonna fail. That's going too far. How about this argument? In this particular argument, if you read it slowly, the suggestion that this one seems to be valid and strong. Because when you get to the conclusion, you say, he may fire Peterson, not definitely. Even though Herman established certain pattern in the past, when you get to the conclusion, you place it in such a nice way where there's a possibility that Mr. Herman may not do what he'd been doing in the past. So this argument is valid and strong. Please look at this closer details. How about this one? Even if Maria is one of the greatest students ever and is always in class all the time, okay, how do we know for certain that she's going to be there next time? Even if she's the greatest student, you may be great and you want to intend to come to school and all kinds of things happen that prevent you from coming to school the next time, okay? And so if you read this argument in any kind of detail, what do you see? This argument has to be what? Yes, right. Valid and weak. Valid and weak. Valid means you continue the pattern. Weak means you've gone too far. You became too definite and certain. How about this open-ended question? How would you evaluate this argument? First, you look for the premise. So, this is a so. He will most likely watch football. But the pattern is that he wasn't watching. So this argument is going against the pattern. This argument is invalid. Did you see that? It's invalid. It is invalid. All right, it's invalid. How about this one? Now, this one, remember how these arguments were. Given the evidence you have, the more evidence you have, the more precise your conclusion, your evaluation would be. The vaguer the evidence, the less likely it is, but it's still a good evaluation. In this particular evaluation, you have someone taking a class, Sandy. Do you know she's a high school graduate? She's a retiree returned to school for her own purposes? You do not know. ENC 1101 is a course that occurs in every university. It's English 101 everywhere. You don't know anything about the person here. So given this data without any context whatsoever, you have to draw some conclusion, namely that if she did not do this, then she's unlikely to do that again. So this argument will be valid and strong just because of the data. If the minute you get more information, you'd have to reevaluate. You must reevaluate. You know the school she's at. You know she's an honor student. You must reevaluate. Pause, read. Now, again, without the context, all right, you have to draw a conclusion that does not seem to be very, very nice. Namely, that this argument is valid and strong. But if you say it's valid and strong, you seem like you're condemning a fireman to his death or his doom. But that's not what it says. It just gives you a clip, a snapshot of something that's happening. Okay, somebody's standing outside and somebody said the first one in there hasn't returned, the second hasn't returned yet. You don't know if it's a calamity, just haven't returned yet. But given the data you have to draw that conclusion. Will probably not return is a valid and strong conclusion.